This is how it started. This is how it's going. So, okay, let's talk about this. Once upon a time, lots of people in the art community were talking about this thing called gouache. I wanted to try, so I got a couple colors. They said you need a black or white to go with any color you use, so I got those two, and I tried, and now I think gouache has become my favorite art medium to use. That by no means means it is the best art medium that I am good at. No, I have no idea what I'm doing. But knowing what you're doing is a terrible thing to let stop you from getting started and playing. And that's what I've been doing for a few years now with gouache and play. And it's brought to mind something kind of important. So while I swatch every gouache paint I own and mix it with white to see the difference in how to use it for better art ideas in the future, I want to talk about plotting versus pantsing, because I think there's been a misunderstanding about what those things actually mean. The short definitions is a plotter is someone who plots and plans everything before starting their novel, their story, and a pantser is someone who just flies by the seat of their pants. But no. See, that brings to mind the idea that you would subscribe to one school of thought or the other. You support one football team or the other, and that's really not what plotting and pantsing are. They're actually stages of the process. We are all both plotters and pantsers in our writing. So just like I'm going to sit around with my gouache paint and not really plan out what I'm doing before I just start making marks on paper and seeing what the paint can do, doesn't mean there isn't going to be a time where I need to sit down and actually plan out what colors are going to go where so that I can better produce what comes next. I don't need to have an outline of my writing before I get started with the story, because the first draft is literally just telling the story to myself, just discovery for myself, and we would call that pantsing. So does that mean I'm a pantser? But I've always thought of myself as more of a planner, someone who has to have all the notebook tabs ready to go and have the answers before I can really start drafting. And this really created a divide in my brain when talking to fellow writers about their process, and it was very negative for both of us. Because now I'm deciding which school of thought you play for versus I play for. We're dividing up the teams and looking at our colors, and it's a waste of time, because the reality is people who are creative do both, and it's just a matter of which one we start with, which one we do first, and which one we're doing currently in this project. And the reality is either of these methods are great ways to keep going and exploring creative process, but they're also great ways to make excuses for ourselves and never get anything done. Subscribing to the pantsing philosophy and never planning and never using an outline is a great way to have a sloppy story that never has a full structure that your audience can latch onto. But over planning and sitting around having all the answers before you start is a great way to never start. I know, especially for writers who spend most of our time being lonely and misunderstood in our craft and our art, it's great to have a sense of camaraderie and labeling of our process and feeling very vindicated with that. I'm a pantser, yay, fellow pantsers unite, and or no, planners all the way. Let's go get those highlighters and outline parties. But the reality is after the burst of camaraderie and feeling the dopamine of feeling validated goes away, there's that divide that's left, and you've actually accidentally limited how you process. And no, I'm a pantser, I can't do that. Or no, I'm a planner, I can't just dive in without a plan. No, you can, because this is your project, this is your creativeness. It's not a team sport. You're not limited to playing for a team. I know when people talk about writing advice of plotting versus pantsing, the common thing that is talked about is it's actually somewhere on the spectrum where we're all on a sliding scale of which one we lean towards, but we do both. And I disagree with that spectrum idea as well, because it isn't a which one are we, but we do both. It's we do both. It's which one are we doing right now? Which one are we doing right in this project first? Which one are we doing later? And which one do we need to be doing next? Because it isn't an either or. It's like playing with paint is not about feeling like I can't get started before I have my swatch ready to go, but having my swatch and having played with how the colors work with each other is going to help me, one, get faster in my projects, and two, better understand what I'm doing and go forth more confidently. But it doesn't mean I don't just sit around and swipe color around and play around either, because sometimes that's the right thing to be doing in that project. I'm not trying to take away the camaraderie you feel for playing for Team Pantser or playing for Team Planner and all the fun that comes with that, because it is. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to help build confidence in how your process looks like your process and not necessarily anybody else's. Doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, but don't lock yourself in. That's really what I want to get across. Don't just get obsessed with playing for the team and forget that it's your project and you need to do what comes next. And if you're getting stuck, it's probably because you need to switch teams, I guess, or try a different technique and look around. I don't know an artist around who doesn't just sit down and sketch without an idea in mind, but once they get going, they will start to put out their guidelines and correct things and use techniques to do that. And before you tell me that writing and painting and drawing aren't the same thing, well, no. Every creative industry requires a sense of whimsy and a sense of structure. And whether or not you're the one producing that creativeness or the one receiving it as the audience, you need to feel both. I hope you guys found some inspiration in my rants and enjoyed my swatching of gouache, and I will see you in the next one, Boo Buddies.